everyone, Jai Hind and welcome to Chetan Bharat Learning. Just like every other Wednesday, today we are going to cover those events and those issues which have been in news lately and which are related to international relations and security issues. So our first issue is going to be Gilgit-Baltistan issue. You might have read this news in Hindu that Pakistan is going to make Gilgit-Baltistan a fully fledged province. There was an article in the Diplomat as well. I'm going to cover that article here in this news as well. So before getting into this news, we must know what Gilgit-Baltistan is as an area. So we all know about this state called J&K. Now it's not a state anymore, although we have the last year Indian government bifurcated it into two UTs, Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. Alright, now otherwise J&K is a much wider, much broader, larger state overall, but the rest of J&K is not in India's possession. This area, the area that you see in green and blue, is in Pakistan's possession and is popularly known as Pakistan occupied Kashmir, like partly Pakistan occupied Kashmir. And this area, which is yellow in color, is in China's possession. This area unfortunately was acquired by China after 1962's war, and this little bit of land, well, it's not all that little, but this piece of land called Sakshigam Valley was given to China by Pakistan as a gesture of friendship or whatever. And here lies the Siachen Glacier. So the geography of this area has become very important for your prelims exam. So you must understand that, like, just knowing where the J&K is not enough. You must know where the Sakshigam Valley is, where Gilgit agency is, where Baltistan is, and Aksai Chin. And within this area, as you know, this area has been in news for other unfortunate reasons as well. The problem that India is facing right now with China, called Galwan value dispute, Galwan value problem, and Pangong Lake and Finger 4 and Finger 5, all these areas you must know, all right, from our prelims perspective. Now that you know that this is J&K and this is Gilgit, this is Baltistan, what is this whole issue about? If you go to Pakistan, the major dominating provinces are Sindh area, Baluch area, Punjab, the most dominating area in Pakistan, Punjabi side of Pakistan, and NWFP, which is now known as Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Okay, so Pathans live here, Punjabis dominate this area, Baluch people live here, and Sindhis live here. However, even within these provinces, if you look at Balochistan, you will see that this area is primarily dominated by Punjabi businessmen. This area is primarily dominated by Sindhi businessmen. Similarly, Sindh again is dominated by Sindh. Punjab itself is very politically strong in Pakistan. All right. In fact, when Bangladesh used to be East Pakistan, even at that time, it was these Punjabis, these Pathans who used to have disproportionate amount of control on eastern Pakistan, which is now known as Bangladesh. And probably that's where the whole idea of having independent country emerged in East Pakistan, and eventually the Liberation Army got there, Liberation Forces got there, Bangladesh, of course through Indira Gandhi's support. Now, if you look at this, even in Pakistan, they sing songs like Sindhi Hum, Baluchi Hum, Punjabi Hum, Pathan Hum. So, do you see any presence of any area called Gilgit-Baltistan here? No, you don't, because Gilgit-Baltistan otherwise has always been marginalized. People here who look like especially this area, Sakshigam Valley, people here who look like Central Asians and Chinese hybrid, okay, Shia Muslims, they have always been marginalized by Pathans here. Here, if you go to this area is called NWFP or Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. That community, Pathan community, is the one having control over businesses, having control over political domains, having control over other institutions in this area, Gilgit-Baltistan and Sakshigam Valley as well. So firstly, in order to have more inclusive Pakistan, I'm giving you the Pakistani narrative, in order to have more inclusive Pakistan, which is decentralizing the power. They are making this area a fully fledged state. That is one narrative. Now we can keep that aside. Second thing is that now that India has turned J&K and Ladakh into UTs, so for all practical purpose, as you know, UTs do not share federal relation with the center, and they are, for all practical reason and essential, they are under the center's control. So you can see that now center will be present here. Union government of India will be present here. Earlier, this area, at least Indian side of Kashmir, it used to have reasonable amount of autonomy because of these special provisions that J&K carried. What were those special provisions? That even there were so many of them, but one of them was that even the legislation passed by the Union of India were applicable to J&K only if the local legislative assembly of J&K approved of it. So that ways, J&K people had their own, J&K legislative assembly had its own Microsoft government running the J&K side of J&K state and the part which is under India's possession. So therefore many legislations like Panchayati Raj institutions or women legislations related to right of girl child and so on were not applicable in J&K. Even Sarfazi Act that Raghav sir will cover with you in economics, which is related to bad loans, Sarfazi. SARF, I think AESI, acts like these were not applicable in J&K earlier, again because of this thing only, that laws made by India used to be applicable here only if the local legislative assembly approves of it. But that's not going to be the case anymore. Why? Because firstly, there isn't going to be any local legislative assembly for Ladakh, and for J&K. For J&K, there is going to be one, but primarily the power is going to be with the Lieutenant General. As couple of weeks ago, there was this notification out by Ministry of Home Affairs. Nonetheless, so because of India's presence here, now Pakistan also wants to assert its presence on its side of J&K, on Pakistani side of Kashmir, not J&K, I beg your pardon, Kashmir. So Pakistan would also want to assert itself here. So it is making this area a fully fledged state. But this is not acceptable. Why? This is just not acceptable to India. Why? Because this is not Pakistan's area. This isn't Pakistan's area. All of that is India's possession, India's integral part. Just because you have control of Indian territory, and the issue is internationally sensitive, and the developments are going on in United Nations and so on, that we will cover in some other lecture. Just because you happen to have control over a particular disputed area which India maintains it's India's integral area, doesn't mean that tomorrow you start making such strong administrative decisions here and you start making governments here. Not acceptable, because one day India will be having its governments here once the issue is resolved. One of the students asked me, sir, tomorrow Pakistan can also say that you are also doing these kind of things on Indian side of Kashmir. Yeah, so this is ours. We can do whatever we want to do. And this is also ours. So you don't tell us that what to do here. And but you don't do anything here, and you don't tell us that we don't tell you what to do here, because this is essentially our area. This is essentially our area. Now you are preparing for a government exam, and then you have to support, not like you have to, otherwise also we can talk about it in one of the lectures, and then you will get to know that yeah, India does have a legal stand here. All right, but coming back to that, you have to have this clarity that not like this is India's Kashmir and this is Pakistan's Kashmir. There is no such thing. This is India's Kashmir and this is also India's Kashmir, unfortunately occupied by Pakistan. Alright, so I hope I am making my point clear as far as the UPSC IS exam is concerned. Now coming back to the basic issue, that how come if this is India's area, Firstly, how come this is India's area? Secondly, how come it is in Pakistan's control? I'll answer the first question first. How come this is India's area? Because when India got its independence, Pakistan got its independence too. There were so many princely states in India, so many states in India which were ruled by Indian prince with a kind of permission from the British. Okay, suzerainty, sovereignty concept we have covered in polity, and if we haven't, we will cover eventually. So there was this area, there were more than 552 states which were ruled by the local kings, J&K being one of them. How did we decide with the rest of the kings that whether they are going to join India, Pakistan, or is going to stay independent? The kings decided, the ruling government decided, legally speaking. Morally speaking, there might have been some other reasons. Morally speaking, we can say that kings consulted the local population, and whatever they said, the kings did that. But where is the proof? Eventually, it was the king, it was a little kingdom, and kings decided. So if rest of India and Pakistan, the future of those princely states was decided by their kings, then how come we have to have a separate rule for Kashmir? Even in Kashmir, whether Kashmir wanted to be a part of J&K or Kashmir, a part of Pakistan or part of India, must have been essentially decided by the person who was ruling this area. So there was this king who was ruling this area, and he signed instrument of accession. In instrument of accession, there was this essential idea that J&K will join India. Now, by virtue of the fact that Gilgit-Baltistan happens to be part of J&K, obviously, if the king of the whole J&K has joined India, it goes without saying that Gilgit-Baltistan also happens to be part of India. So now you know how it is part of India. It's pretty much like this. Say, like I come from Chandigarh. So if, say, king of Punjab, like imagine if Punjab was a state and king of Punjab joined India. So it goes without saying that Amritsar, Jalandhar, Ludhiana and all these areas, Mohali, they become part of India, okay, because king is ruling the entire Punjab, Patiala, and then so on. I can't say that, you know what, there is so much resentment against this king going on in Patiala, so you may have the rest of Punjab in India, but Patiala will decide for itself. It doesn't work like this, legally speaking, alright? Why I'm saying so? Because there was this article in this magazine called Wire, which was going on and on about it. At least for the UPSC exam, we can't have this school of a line. Alright? You have to be reasonably statist. I'm not saying that you can't critically analyze something if there is a really poor scheme by Indian government which is not reaching to its beneficiaries, then you can't criticize it. But the very essence of the nation, the very fundamentals that we stand by, you can't like kind of be so hypercritical about them. Now coming back to this thing, first question is answered, that how come this is India's part. So now you know, because king of Maharaja of J&K and Indian government signed such a document. Now, how come this area is under Pakistan control? For that, you will have to go a little bit in history. Around 1939, I think in 1939 itself, Maharaja of Punjab, Ranjit Singh, he died. Now, Maharaja Ranjit Singh used to rule all of that area, all the way to Afghanistan, from Lahore and so on. So this area was also under Maharaja Ranjit Singh, but after a few years, I think in 1945-46, there was this Anglo-Sikh war. There was a war between the local Sikh little kingdoms and the British. Of course, British succeeded in that war. They were the victorious powers. And after that, this area was kind of given to one of the local chieftains, you can say, Dogra king from Kashmir. It is alleged that for 75 lakh Nanak Shahi rupees, this person decided to support, this king decided to support British. But that's how kings used to operate during those times. Today you can raise a question mark on Sindhiyas, Holkars, this, that and so on. Today you can raise question mark on so many different communities and so many different kingdoms. Even in 1857, so many otherwise popular kingdoms in India supported British. So it used to go on like this, and that's what happened here as well. Now, in order to accommodate this guy, it is said that this area was given to him. But very soon, British realized one more thing. That was that this northwestern part of J&K, and of course this NWFP and so on, this area, you need to again remind yourself that there wasn't such precise border here. So British decided that this area is very important for Britain in the context of Russia. It was believed that this area was the central point or epicenter of great games between the whole Central Asia, was the epicenter of great games between Russia and Britain. It was believed that Russia wanted to come down and maintain its hegemony and control in these areas, and Britain wanted to contain Russia up there. All right, so there was this conflict going on. So Britain couldn't be careless with this area, so they thought that, you know what, let's do this. The whole of J&K is duly, respectfully is under this little king, according to their point of view, this little king called Maharaja of J&K. But this area, Gilgit-Baltistan area, we are going to control ourselves. How? By taking it on lease. We will raise our forces here, which will be known as Gilgit Scout. This is going to be our force, and Gilgit Scout, Gilgit Army, something like this. And British soldiers along with the local recruits, they will be posted here. And this whole area otherwise is going to be under this king. Now what happens, the day Pakistan and India were formed, the local, I'll have to take you 30 years back. During World War, this lease was renewed. Alright, this lease was renewed for another 60 years, but it could not go on for another 60 years because in 1947, India got its independence. Now, just like any other state, this state also had the power to join either India or Pakistan or stay independent. It is said that this king wanted to remain independent, so he was playing all the games that he could. Nonetheless, during this time only, Pakistan attacked Kashmir, and then this king came to India seeking support. India supported on the condition that you join India, and then India supported them, and then the Pakistani forces were sent back, and this became the line of control. Now, this area, otherwise because it was under British control, so the British army, whoever was posted here, Major, I don't remember his name, so that guy and some of the Pakistani soldiers, they waved Pakistani flag here. And in his biography, he wrote that he read that so much massacre has been going on in rest of the India during partition, especially in Punjab, and then these areas have Jammu and then so on, because there was so much violence going on, and he thought that this area is otherwise Muslim dominated, so therefore we should raise Pakistani flags here. Now, just because some guy who was standing there because his empire had that area under lease and he raises the flag of Pakistan, doesn't mean that this area becomes Pakistani's territory. So imagine if some French soldier has taken this area on lease and he has raised French flag here. Would that make this area a French colony, or whatever the case may be? So nonetheless, but it actually happened in history, right? You can't change it. So because this actually happened, this area got under Pakistan's control. All right. So since then, once the Indian soldiers and the Pakistani soldiers were fighting in the 1948 and so on, during that war, once the fighting was paused wherever the forces were, okay, when the ceasefire was established, wherever the forces were, that became the line of control, LOC. But you need to understand that LOC is not necessarily the actual border of sovereign India. Border goes here. This is India, and this area is under Pakistan's territory. So now you understand that this is India's integral part. Pakistan cannot make it, shouldn't make it a fully fledged state unless this dispute is resolved. There is one more objection that India has, which is China's CPEC. CPEC is also going through this area, disputed area. India does not support such projects which are installed or which are going through disputed areas throughout the world. This happens to be one. So whatever developments take place, we will cover them eventually. By making provincial, by making it a fully fledged state, Gilgit-Baltistan will have its proper assembly. Proper assembly, just like all the states have their assemblies, their chief minister, the MLAs and so on. Right now it just has a provincial autonomous status, which was also given to it about 10ish years ago. Before that it didn't even have that either. Alright, so otherwise this area has been marginalized since as far back as you can remember. But now that India has become little active on Indian side, Pakistan has also started to become active in Indian side, which is in Pakistan's control. All right, clear? Shall we move forward? So India raised its objections. This area is also important, Gilgit-Baltistan area, because it has very high peaks, all the beautiful mountains. It is said that this region is home to 8,000ers. These big mountains which go 8,000 meters high, it has 5 of them. All right, so that makes it one of the really important areas geographically speaking as well. And some of world's longest glaciers are also found in Gilgit-Baltistan. So not only strategically and talking from sovereignty point of view, this area is important to India, but geographically speaking as well, it is very important. All right, so this was all that we could do from those couple of articles. Whatever happens next will be covered eventually. Next thing that you might have read in Hindu again, there was this news on 17th that USA keen on finalizing geospatial cooperation at 2+2 dialogue. First thing we should know is, what is this 2+2 dialogue? When the foreign minister and the defense minister of two countries, say India, Australia, India, USA, or India, South Korea, when they meet, this kind of meet is known as 2+2 dialogue. Foreign minister and defense ministers. Usually what happens that before establishing 2+2 dialogues where foreign minister and defense minister meet, there takes place a few meetings between foreign secretary and defense secretary of both the nations, and after a few successful such meets, countries establish this kind of 2+2 dialogue. So India and USA, they have established 2+2 dialogues for a few years now. In 2018, 2+2 dialogue COMCASA was finalized, and it is believed that next month, when two countries will meet in 2+2 dialogue, BECA will be finalized. Now the second question is, what is this COMCASA? What is this BECA? So for that you need to understand a little bit of India-USA defense relationship. Those who are studying with us, you would have covered IR by now. So India and US's defense relationship can be called as the brightest spot of this fastly changing, in a good direction of course, fastly changing India-USA relationship. Today India and USA, they have defense trade-off somewhere around $20 billion plus. That's a lot, given the fact that India and otherwise India's all-weather friend called Russia have total trade of what? Around $11 billion, $12 billion, something of this sort. So only defense here is almost 2 times than the total trade with Russia. Number one. Second thing is that India and US's defense relationship, they are not restricted to being, a consumer and supplier relationship. Not like they make something really sophisticated and they send it to us and that's it. Now, we are taking, joint projects. We are cooperating on so many different security architectures. say to some extent even Quad for that matter. All right, we have done that last week. We covered Quad. If we haven't, it will come eventually. It will keep on, being in the news. So that similarly, India and USA, they have so many joint military exercises as well. You might have heard of Red Flag. If you haven't, you have today. Red Flag, Yuddha Abhyas, and so on. So the idea is that India and USA, they are cooperating in every way possible as far as the defense relations are concerned. USA has kind of accorded India the status which it has given to its NATO ally called United Kingdom. So that ways we can see that India has greatly tilted towards USA in terms of its military relationship. Now, there are 4 high-end intelligence sharing, or you can say 4 foundational agreement between India and USA. 3 of them have been finalized. 1 is pending, the one we are talking about, which kind of cement the relationship. These four agreements are very important to cement the relationship, to kind of institutionalize the whole relationship. The first agreement was General Security of Military Information Agreement. Okay, GSO-MIA, General Security of Military Information Agreement, GSO-MIA. It was signed long back. Alright, this is the first level. You know how you meet somebody, first you meet them and then you talk about notes, next time you take numbers, third time you talk about what are you studying, next time you are studying together, and then next thing you know that you are not studying but you are just together. Similarly here, first thing is this GSO-MIA. Second agreement, after that came LEMOA, LEMOA. It stands for Logistics Exchange Memorandum of Agreement. Within this agreement, 2 countries are supposed to provide each other, and India is supposed to provide USA logistical support if their aircrafts need, or their aircraft carriers need refueling, some sort of replenishment of some goods and services. Then India will provide logistics, from fuel to medicines to anything of that sort, repairing mechanism, anything which comes under logistics. So that ways, if USA's aircraft is parked in Indian Ocean, or it's going on in South China Sea, then India is supposed to go all the way because of this agreement and provide them all the logistical support that India has agreed to. All right. Third agreement, which was passed in 2018 and it is valid for another 10 years, is called COMCASA. I think its name was SISMOA, but it was changed to COMCASA because India had certain apprehensions with the earlier agreement. USA has that kind of agreement with so many countries, but India wanted it tailor-made. So keeping India's sensitivities into mind, its name was changed and it was called, and it's still called, I beg your pardon, COMCASA. All right. In this, as per COMCASA, which stands for Communication Compatibility and Security Agreement, as per this agreement, USA and India, and USA especially, of course, because they have better sophisticated technology, USA will share its highly sophisticated encrypted communication technology with India. Both the hardware and the software shall be installed. So Indian military, Indian Navy, Indian Air Force and all that, they shall have access to a really high-end communication technologies, especially the encrypted ones, so that intelligence gathering becomes better for India. Now it's going to be very important. We have covered it already, but it's going to be very important in so many cases. Say for example, Indian Ocean. As we all know that there exists this string of pearl theory, which states that India has been covered by China with this necklace around its neck, and all these areas have been turned into Chinese Chinese kind of military points, from Hambantota to Kyopo Island to Woody Island, all the way to Gwadar. We have seen that China is becoming very assertive and very active here. So Indian Navy will need very strong communication devices, both hardware and software technology in general. So it is believed that Comcasa shall be helpful in that. Now the only thing pending, so we have done GSOMIA, sorted between India and US. Then there exists Limoa, sorted. Then there exists Comcasa, sorted. Now it is believed that the final agreement known as BECA, this shall be signed in the coming August as well. Now what is this BECA? BECA is the agreement that would facilitate exchange of geospatial information between India and USA. Geospatial information. It is said that under BECA, India will get such sophisticated technology which will give India a very fine, very precise, pinpointed technology as far as the geospacing is concerned. If India wants to map a certain area, it will be able to target the precise point. That level of technology that USA has. It is said that eventually what will follow after this agreement will be that USA is going to give India a very sophisticated aircraft, some snooping drones or helicopters, which will help India in taking care of all these areas which are disturbed, firstly, and where the terrain is not all that easy to maintain. And to conduct all these surgical strikes, you need very pinpointed targets. So that will be possible after BECA, number one. Second thing is that even India's existing cruise missiles and ballistic missiles will be able to hit the target to the finest precision after access to this technology. So BECA will allow India to use expertise of geospatial intelligence to enhance military accuracy of automated hardware system. So this you were supposed to know. BECA stands for Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement, just in case if I haven't told you earlier. Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement. So this was another issue which was in news. Primarily, these were the two things that you were supposed to know from last week. However, I have read a few articles in Frontline and World Focus and Diplomat that I would quickly want to discuss with you. The first one is this article. This was in last week's Frontline, last fortnight's USA-China, a hybrid war. This article, you don't have to go through the entire article, but I'll tell you the crux of it. This article talks about what is going on between USA and China. An article essentially says that USA is being very, upfront about getting into war with China, hoping that China will get intimidated. But China is being equally assertive. How? For example, in South China Sea, USA has deployed USS Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier kind of a thingy, and then USS Nimitz carrier, and then so on. So very sophisticated, very high-end arms and ammunition are being deployed in South China Sea by USA, and in return China has launched a few missiles, testing missiles around its coast just to send the message across. Number one. Number two, USA earlier said that it was going to ban TikTok. ByteDance, the company which controls TikTok and all that, ZTE, Huawei, it has banned Huawei, it has banned ZTE, and it was going to ban TikTok as well. But then Donald Trump said that, you know what, you can sell your USA operations to a company which is essentially governed, which essentially functions in USA, because it is said that your company takes away United States data, it snoops on people and sends it back to the Chinese government. All right. In return, Chinese government had said to TikTok, that company ByteDance, that any algorithm-based company shall not sell anything to foreign to USA company without Chinese government's permission. So that ways you can see that China is not getting intimidated that we are going to lose billions of dollars, so whatever, let's sell it to you, Microsoft or Amazon. These were the two contenders who wanted to buy TikTok. All right, so China is like, no, it's okay, we will not sell it to you. Thirdly, Alibaba happens to be another very famous Chinese company, and USA is said to have put so many restrictions on it, but China says that China itself is a bigger market for Alibaba than USA for that matter, so it's okay, we'll manage. So that way, if you look at it, China also replies to USA with equal restrictions, if not more. So what is this whole thing going on? So the takeaway from this article, all of that which I have just said was only to contextualize the thing. The one very good takeaway from this article was, it said that USA today does not rely on manufacturing. Manufacturing does not form the major part of United States of America's GDP. Then what does? Our article says that it's the real estate and technology. So the article argues that this technology is not only, this is going to be the technology war, not in the sense that high-end technology will be deployed, but this war is actually going on because of technology, that who controls future technology. What does that mean? It is said that in the previous few years, especially last year, more Chinese scientists filed patents, latest patents, than American ones, which hasn't happened in so many decades. USA has had this hegemony of, being the pioneer of scientific invention and all that. Chinese companies are inventing so many high-end state-of-the-art technologies, and then they are expanding their horizon throughout the world. All right. So it is believed, USA feels that tomorrow, if China becomes the hub of 5G technology, Internet of Things, robotics, artificial intelligence, high-speed rail, and then so on. If China becomes the power of that, the hub of high-end technology, and USA being an open economy, a free market economy, what will happen tomorrow? A USA company, if required a 5G technology, will take it from China and will send the money to China, and then what will China do? Will do more research and development, and then that way China will go further step ahead of USA in terms of technology, and then American companies will again buy technology from that company, Chinese company, and will give money to China, and this way in few years China may surpass USA even in terms of technology, the high-end futuristic technologies. That is the fear. It may not happen. If you can, of course, we can endlessly argue that it will never happen and USA is decades ahead of China and so on. We are not getting into that. I'm just telling you that this article argues that maybe that is the apprehension. Why? Because they're feeling, the article says that USA can easily manage with most of these menial jobs being in, manufacturing jobs being in China. So it is not that reason. It is the high-end technology going in the hands of Chinese government. That is the problem. USA wants to maintain its hegemony. So I thought of sharing this article with you, hoping that what if tomorrow some sort of question is framed, say, it is just like in earlier days, there used to be a war on land and say water, availability of these kind of things. The cause of future wars will be, say, technology and data or something of this sort. So you should be able to back it up. Understand that our ancestors, they used to fight for water, for women, for land. So the future generations will fight for data, for sophisticated technology and so on. And this is the episode 1 of Black Mirror. All right. Now, second, this article I would discuss later on if time permits, but now I would want to discuss this article. It was in Frontline. The article goes by this title: Tension over Peace Deal Between Israel and UAE. Let's quickly take a look at this article. Now you know that in the Middle East, this Muslim-dominated Middle East, there exists this Jewish nation called Israel, whatever the spelling is. All right, there exists this little nation called Israel. Now this nation is Jewish. Jews and Muslims, they go long in history. We will do that in some other class. I will cover the Middle East history and politics with you. Since biblical era, Jews have had problems with, or other way around, you can put it anyway, that Christians and Muslims have had problems with Jews, religious sentiment wise. But nonetheless, now there exists this little nation called Israel, and this is Middle East, essentially dominated by Muslims. Now, when Israel was formed, historically speaking, 1948, all these nations around Israel, they declared it as a historical catastrophe, and they said that they were going to wage war against Israel, and they actually did. Egypt attacked Israel, Syria attacked Israel, Jordan attacked Israel, Lebanon attacked Israel. All these nations, they got together and they attacked Israel, and other countries provided their support. Israel defeated them all. Then they attacked Israel again. Israel defeated them all, and then again, then Israel defeated them all. All right. And during this time, so many different developments took place. One of them was when Israel defeated Egypt, it took away a lot of its area as well, called Sinai Peninsula, which was later on returned. At the same time, Israel also, when it defeated Syria, it took area of Syria under its control called Golan Heights, which even today continues to be in Israel's control. Nonetheless, so none of these countries were happy with the very existence of Israel. Now, slowly and slowly, once Israel defeated Egypt, and then they had a peace deal brokered by again so many international countries, Egypt became the first country to recognize Israel, and that is when Egypt stopped being the face of Muslim world, or the power of Muslim world. And what happened? That these nations, Saudi Arabia and Iran, they started to take on the leadership role, and Egypt's role as the main Muslim power kind of started to lose currency. Later on, after like a few years, Jordan also recognized Israel, because probably they were living in its neighborhood and they thought that it would be better to have peaceful neighborhood. Who even cares what's happening within Israel? Now, what is the problem? Why none of these countries are recognizing Israel? Apart from this sentimental reason, that the one that I'm ignoring in this lecture, that goes on from historical religious history. They say that this area essentially belonged to Palestinian Muslim people, but Israeli migration, they not only kind of displaced the local Palestinians, but the Israeli government treated them really badly, and now there should be two state solution is called, that there should be two states. One is Israeli state and one should be Israeli state. Fine, the maximum that we can agree to is that there exists this Israeli state and then Palestinian state, and still there are certain issues like what will happen to Jerusalem and Bethlehem and all that we will see eventually. But long story cut short, you should know that none of these countries, they recognize Israel. Not only that, they do not have very good relations with this tiny little country. All right. Now, why are we covering this thing? Because one of the strongest Middle East power, one of the strongest Mohammedan country, not USA, UAE, all right, one of the strongest Muslim country, UAE, it has recognized Israel. It has decided to make bilateral relations with Israel. This is being popularly known called Abraham Accord. So if in prelims you get a question that recently Abraham Accord was in news, it is in the context of Israel, UAE. All right, number one. Second thing is that why is such a big news? Because if UAE has recognized Israel, what does that mean? That Israel is getting acceptance in the Muslim world. Donald Trump also said that Saudi Arabia will also follow eventually. Saudi Arabia happens to be a very strong partner of USA. Okay. How can we say that Saudi Arabia will follow eventually? It will also recognize Israel, because the flights from UAE to Israel will go through Saudi Arabia's airspace, and Saudi Arabia has given its approval to this thing. Saudi Arabia has said that it's okay with this. Earlier, only Indian flights, I think Indian flights which used to go Israel, were permitted to go through Saudi Arabia. These countries, they do not, most of them, they do not even fly to Israel, and Israelis don't fly to these nations either. But this has not happened overnight. In fact, over the last 5-6 years, so many Israeli businessmen were at least partially were allowed to open companies in UAE, which were operating in UAE and the rest of the Middle East. So that way UAE wants to have peaceful relations with Israel. Now, the take home for us from UPSC perspective is that how does it affect India? So I would say it's good for India. All right. Why? Right now, India has to deal with way too many issues when it's dealing with the Middle East. People say that India's Look East policy is the most successful policy. I would say that India's Middle East policy is the most successful policy, because it is so difficult to make policy for UAE. You must be always juggling, perpetually juggling. Why? Because you have to create so many balances between Sunni nation and Shia nation, between those nations where say we send so many people to as labor, for example Saudi Arabia. All right, so many Indians from Bihar and all these states, they work in Saudi Arabia. Similarly, at the same time, between job giving nation versus say oil supplying nation, say Iran for that matter. So India gets oil from Iran. Tomorrow you get to know that USA is filing or imposing sanctions on Iran, and things become difficult for India. Imagine if USA and Iran had really cordial relations. India could deal with Iran, India could deal with USA independently. Now it becomes a little difficult. Similarly, on top of that, this Muslim Jew angle, India has to balance, so much so that it was only Narasimha Rao who had the audacity and guts and the rationality to form fully fledged relations with Israel. Otherwise, until Narasimha Rao became India's Prime Minister, India did not even have a fully fledged embassy, Israeli embassy. We used to have one little consulate. So India has started forming good relations with Israel only. The relationships have taken, the speed that it needs to take only for the last 15-20 years. So that way it's a good development for India. India has welcomed this development. So that way Indians working in UAE will be able to work in Israel as well. I'm not saying by virtue of that they will get some sort of work visa. Don't misconstrue that. What I mean to say is that better coordination, peaceful relation between UAE and Israel will also help Indians, because they will have one less factor to Indian foreign policy makers will have one less factor to balance. In any case, these days it's not UAE, it's not Saudi Arabia, which is kind of rising as an orthodox Muslim power. It is countries like Iran or Turkey. These countries are trying to emerge and trying to fill the vacuum that Saudi Arabia and UAE has decided to leave for any Muslim nation. All right. So of course, Pakistan, Turkey, and this nation Iran, these nations have called it a historic blunder, but India has welcomed this development. All right, so that was all I had to discuss this week. I'll see you next week. Till then, all the best. Take care.